So, you want to stream on Twitch or YouTube? Congratulations. Being a streamer is so much fun. If you're looking for a sign or a little push to get streaming, this is it. Do it. My name's Danny and I stream over on twitch.tv/DannyVals. Today I'm going to tell you 10 things that you need to do before you go live for that very first time. I've got a whole bunch of videos coming in the next few weeks and months, absolutely full of tips for small streamers, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out. If you find anything in this video useful, be sure to leave a like, and if you leave a comment, that'd absolutely make my day. So, let's get you ready for your very first stream. The first thing you're going to need to do is think up a catchy and memorable username. Now, I've got DannyVals as my name. It's not particularly inventive, it's not particularly exciting, but that's the name that I have. I actually created my Twitch account about 5 or 6 years ago, and I wanted to enter some big streamers giveaway. They were giving away a guitar, I wanted a chance to win some free stuff, so I just took my name, Danny Valentine, DannyVals. That's literally it, that's literally how the name came about. I think it was about 2 years or so from that point that I started to use Twitch regularly as a viewer, and about 6 months from then I started streaming for myself. By that point though, I'd made some good friendships in communities that I was watching regularly, and changing my name, it just seemed like a bad idea. Here I am 3 years later, stuck as DannyVals. If you're going to stream, try not to fall into that trap. You don't want a username that's uninspired or unoriginal, you want something that's snappy, memorable, sticks out in people's minds. Also, try not to go for anything that has an underscore, because people never remember where that goes, and having numbers in your name, people can never remember the order. Also, I know this is kind of rich coming from a guy who spells DannyVals with a Z, but try to avoid names or words that can be spelled in alternative ways. For instance, if you want to stream as Stephen Plays Games, people aren't going to know just from hearing it that you spell Stephen with a PH. For tip number 2, we're going to reserve our social handles. So once you have your catchy, memorable, interesting username, we're going to want to try to stay consistent across any and all platforms where people might find you. You're going to want to have the same name across Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, MySpace, Bebo, anywhere people are, you should have the same name. Luckily, there's a really useful tool that we can use to check the availability of usernames across many different platforms all at once. It's called Name Checker. It's spelled like this because obviously the people who made it didn't watch this video and they don't know about avoiding using ambiguous spellings. To use Name Checker, you've simply got to type in a username that you're thinking about using and press enter. It'll then go ahead and check to see if that username is available across different social media sites, blog platforms, and more. It even tells you if the .com version of your username is available. Buying a domain for your streamer name isn't a day one purchase, but it's good to plan ahead. A quick note on some of the ones that say unavailable or error, it's worth checking those ones manually. Namecheck isn't bulletproof, and it should only be used as a guide rather than being considered to be 1,000,000,000% factually accurate. Once you have a username that you're happy with and that has good availability, I'd recommend signing up for accounts using that username, and I mean on any platform you can think of, even if you don't necessarily plan on using it. You don't want to be streaming on YouTube as Pedro the Chipmunk for a year just to have someone create a Twitch account with that exact same name for a joke, or worse, to try to capitalize off of your established name and brand. While we're setting up new accounts, you might want to take this opportunity to create your own Discord server. I recently did a video called 10 Discord tips for small streamers. You might want to check that out to get some best practices and really make the most of your Discord. The next thing we need to do is decide on our streaming software. Now, there are loads of different options for software that can get you live, but the ones we're going to be talking about in this video are Streamlabs OBS and OBS. Yes, Twitch does have its own software called Twitch Studio, but it's a walled garden. You can only use it to stream on Twitch, so if ever you decide to move away from that as a platform, you're going to have to learn brand new software. With Streamlabs OBS or OBS, it's platform agnostic. You can stream wherever you want. So for Streamlabs, it's really beginner friendly, and it's great for people who like a one-stop shop kind of situation, where everything is just configured within the software itself. Your stream, your alerts, your overlays, and we'll go into a bit of that a little later on. One of the main downsides of Streamlabs OBS though is that the software is quite aggressive at pushing a $19 per month subscription model on you. It is optional and it does come with some interesting features, but for me, the value just wasn't there. Also, in my experience, it's a lot more sort of resource intensive, shall we say. So when your RAM and your CPU are at full throttle and you're trying to stream, it's going to become a bit choppy and your viewers aren't going to have a great time. That being said, there's nothing wrong with using Streamlabs OBS if that's the software that you enjoy. If it works well for your use case, particularly if you're a non-game streamer such as an artist or a musician, have at it. Plenty of partner streamers use it, plenty of full-time streamers use it. It's definitely a viable option. My preference though is to use OBS. True, it doesn't hold your hand as much at the start and it requires a little bit of learning, but once you're familiar with the interface, it actually makes a lot of sense and you'll find it's a very powerful bit of software. OBS is lightweight, so it runs really well on basically anything and it's highly customizable as well. I'm not just talking some skins to make it look a bit different, I'm talking about actual useful customization, such as the ability to add any web page as a doc and a whole heap of third-party customization plugins. Some of these plugins can really add some production value to your stream to make it look amazing. Personally, I use a variety of different plugins on my stream. Some add visual effects like a blur to a source, others can allow me to do like a dynamic freeze frame or that face scan thing that you see on TikTok and Instagram. Make sure you're subscribed too, because I'm releasing a series of OBS guides, including some focusing on plugins, and you won't want to miss out on those. The next thing to do is to set up your equipment. You don't need to spend big bucks in order to start streaming. Yes, as you grow a little bit, you might want to invest in some better equipment, but honestly, most people can get started without having to buy anything new at all. The only thing I would say is essential is a microphone. You don't need a webcam necessarily. In fact, some people choose not to have a webcam at all, but without a microphone, you're going to find it incredibly difficult to grow. What a lot of people tend to do is put a stream on as like background entertainment, so they can be busy doing something else whilst also listening to you. But of course, if you're not using your voice, they're not listening, so you're missing out on all those people. Just make sure that whatever you're doing, your voice is louder than the gameplay, but more on that a little bit later on. Now, as I say, it isn't mandatory, but I do recommend the use of a webcam if you can. People like to make human connections, and showing yourself on stream is a great way to help people feel like they're interacting with a real human being. Plus, in my experience, people who have a webcam on screen, they tend to see quicker growth than those who don't. I know it can be kind of intimidating to put your face out there for the whole world to see. I feel very on the spot a lot of the time, especially doing videos like this. But if you don't like having your face up, there are ways around it. You can use software to have like a 2D or even 3D avatar represent you in real time. If that sounds interesting to you, have a Google for PNGTuber or VTuber software. If you do use a webcam though, make sure you do what you can to make sure your face is lit nicely. When I first started streaming, my webcam looked like this. I'm sure we can agree that's not a great experience. Adding some additional lighting makes a huge difference in the quality, even if it's just a vaguely dim lamp pointed somewhere in your direction. Or if you don't have a lamp and you do have a second monitor, maybe just set it to a pure white screen so it can help illuminate you. The next thing to do is to set up your scenes. I'd say there are probably 3 main scenes that every single streamer needs. That's a starting scene, a BRB scene, and a gameplay scene. Having a simple starting scene is a fantastic way of building just a little bit of anticipation and suspense. Because you're not hopping straight into your game as soon as you go live, it gives your community members a chance to say hi to each other and kind of hang out before the stream starts properly. For any latecomers, it gives a bit of a buffer between stream starting and you starting. If you're playing something with a large, complicated story, this just means there's less chance of people missing chunks of it. Of course, you must be careful with how long you keep people waiting. Personally, I always use a 5-minute timer displayed on screen at all times, and this is vital. People don't want to be sat there in a weird stream limbo wondering when things are actually going to begin. Plus, by having this getting started scene, it gives you a little extra time to go get a quick drink, go to the toilet, or just to finish off your pre-stream checklist before actually going live. As for the gameplay scene, this kind of speaks for itself really. This is the scene that you'll be broadcasting like 95% of the time. Of course, if you're not a gamer, this is your art scene, or your cooking scene, or your music performance scene, or whatever it might be. This is like the meat and gravy of your stream. This is the reason why people are tuning in to see you. If you have a webcam, consider putting it on the center left or the center right. Often people like to put them in the corners for aesthetic reasons, and I get it, but when people are browsing for streams on Twitch or on YouTube, often there are little overlays in those corners, so if your face is in the corner, it's going to be obscured. It's tempting to have lots of overlays on your stream, like latest follower, latest subscriber, latest donation. Maybe you want to have chat displayed on your stream at all times. I used to do this myself until some guy came in saying, "Oh, wow, with all that nonsense on the screen, everyone's going to really want to tune into this." Now, he said it like an absolute dick, but he really had a point. Less is more. Let your gameplay and your personality speak for themselves. Plus, if you have people's names displayed on screen at all times, and someone comes in with like a racist name or hateful, bigoted, awful name, you're gonna have to scramble to get that off your screen very, very quickly. It's not fun, trust me. Not too long ago, I was playing a big release game like the day after it came out, and 5 or 6 people came in and followed, and interestingly, their names were all spoilers for the game that I was playing. So that was great. The last scene is a be right back scene. Now this is essential if you're going to be away from your computer for any length of time really, because you don't just want to broadcast like the poor screen of your game. That's boring, that's dull, and people aren't necessarily going to want to stick around. Instead, have a BRB scene that is interesting, exciting, and engaging. One way you can do this is by using words on stream. This is like an anagram solving game that your chat can get involved with. Another thing you might want to consider is having your stream's clips play automatically, so while you're not around, you're still, in a way, engaging your community with exciting gameplay, exciting moments from your stream that have already happened. Of course, you can and probably will have a lot more scenes in this, but those are the ones you need in order to get started. If you do decide to have a stream ending scene, my advice would be, keep it brief. People have short attention spans, and if they click away, it means they're not going to be involved in that raid or live redirect at the end of stream. Also, some people like to have a credit scene showing people's names where they've contributed in some way, be it a follow or a subscription or a donation. It's nice to acknowledge people, but this does have the same drawback as I mentioned earlier. If someone uses a hateful name, that's going to be displayed on the stream all over again. Maybe avoid having a credit scene. The next thing to do is to set up our alerts and our overlays. Now, alerts are the little animated messages that appear when someone follows or subscribes or interacts with the stream in some way. These can be really big and in your face, or they can be subtle and minimalistic. It's up to you and kind of the vibe you want to cultivate in your stream. Personally, I use streamer.bot for my alerts, even though I'm not using Streamlabs OBS to broadcast with. There are, of course, alternatives such as streamelements.com or even dedicated software such as Sammy or streamer.bot. I've put links to all of these down below in the description if you want to check these out for yourself. Overlays are what give your stream that little extra bit of added visual flavour. It's the images and videos that you use in order to make yourself stand out. This could be as simple as having an image or a video surrounding your webcam, maybe an animated background, maybe unique assets for each individual scene that you have in your stream. You could use a supporter bar or a supporter stack, or even have chat messages appearing on your screen. A combination of these works wonders, so experiment and see what works for you. Overlays and alerts are a chance to get really creative and also increase the overall production value of your stream. It lets you set a consistent visual style and also incorporate some brand colors. If you don't have the artistic ability or the technical know-how to create your own overlays, there are loads of resources online where you can buy pre-made ones. I've been streaming for a while now, and in that time I've refreshed my stream 3 times with alerts and overlays from nerdordie.com. Now, this isn't a sponsored video by any means, but I keep going back to them because they've got a variety of visual styles, everything's really easy to configure, and it's really affordable too. In fact, they've even got some alerts and overlay packs that are completely free to use. If you did decide to make a purchase though, I do have an affiliate link in the description below. The 7th thing we need to do before we go live for the first time is to establish a schedule. I first started streaming at the beginning of 2020, and at the time I was working a job that had me on shift work. I'd go live for an hour here, 2 hours there, but I also worked on call. Oftentimes this would mean I'd be in the middle of a stream, in the middle of a game, and I'd have to disappear with basically no notice because a work thing cropped up. My numbers were fine at best. I had a few regulars that would tune in, but my problem was growth. People who followed me at say 3 PM on a Monday, they wouldn't necessarily be around at 8 PM on a Saturday when I went live. In September of 2020, my amazing wife gave birth to a baby boy. Naturally, this meant the stream went on hiatus. When I was planning my comeback, I realised I needed some more structure. I of course wanted to be available for when Mrs. V needed help with the baby, but I also wanted a separation between work and fun. So I decided I was going to go live at the same time on the same 4 days every week. And wouldn't you know, this made a huge difference to my average viewership. People have commitments. People have work and family and school and a lot more. So when someone's browsing for a stream to watch, it's because they've got some free time to kill. And free time tends to happen on a fairly regular schedule. By being strict with the days and times I'd start stream, people knew exactly when I'd be live. So when new followers came along, they'd know when to find me. It doesn't really matter how often you stream, or even necessarily how long you stream for. I know successful streamers who only go live 1 day a week, but because they're consistent with that 1 day, people show up. If you have a schedule, you're basically guaranteed to see growth, and you know what? I wish I'd started doing this sooner. So you followed all the previous tips so far and you're ready to go live, right? Wrong. What you need to do next is test your stream. It might be tempting to stream immediately, but actually it's essential to make sure you have everything working correctly as you intend it before starting. Even now as a seasoned streamer, sometimes things just go wrong. Sometimes I'll forget to turn on something at the start of stream, try to use it later and go, I need to fix this while everyone's watching, and it's a massive stress and a massive panic. Best avoided. By testing out everything beforehand, you're essentially allowing yourself to start off on the right foot. And besides, if your first stream is called Test Stream LOLs, people aren't exactly going to flock in to view it. The way we're going to test our first stream is by recording rather than going live. In OBS, you'll need to go to Settings, Output, Recording. From there, you want to make sure the encoder is set to Use Stream Encoder. If you're using Streamlabs, it's Settings, Output, Recording, and then you set recording quality to Same as Stream. This way, when you record, the file saved to your machine will be an accurate representation of what your audience would see. Once that's set up, hit the record button instead of your go live button, and then go through the motions as if you were streaming. That means start off in your stream starting scene, transition through to a gameplay scene, or if you're a creative type, this is your art or cooking or music scene, and then test out your BRB scene as well. It's important to chat and be engaging, even during a test stream. This way you know that your gameplay isn't drowning out your voice, or your voice drowning out your gameplay. Plus, speaking to camera is a great habit to get into, especially early on. Then after about 15 or so minutes of recording, you're going to stop and watch yourself back. There are a few key things we're looking for in this recording. Firstly, any text you might have on screen, you want to make sure that's legible. So if you have a follower goal, you want to make sure you can actually see that font and read it clearly. Next, we want to make sure that our camera and our gameplay don't stutter. So yes, 60 frames a second looks nice and smooth, but if you're on a laptop or if you're on maybe lower end hardware, you may want to consider setting your stream's frame rate to 30 instead. This means you won't be pushing your hardware quite as much, and there's going to be less chance of seeing hitches and stuttering in your stream. You also need to check to make sure that your gameplay isn't grainy, and for this, bitrate has a huge role to play. The higher the bitrate, the better things will look, but also, the more bandwidth is required to stream. If you're on a slow connection, bear this in mind. For Twitch, the maximum bitrate by default is 6,000 kilobits a second, and on YouTube it's actually much, much higher. Down in the description, we've got links to both Twitch and YouTube bitrate guides. Perhaps most importantly of all though, you want to pay attention to your audio levels. You want to make sure your microphone is always the clearest thing on your stream. If it's not, try different mic placement, try different settings, or raise or lower audio levels as you need. You'll want to make sure that your microphone is just tickling the red area of the audio monitor when you're speaking, and for any other sounds it should be approaching the yellow. What I strongly recommend doing is setting a limiter on your audio sources so they never exceed these thresholds. To do this, go into the settings of your mic like so and press filters. You can then press the plus button in the bottom left corner and choose limiter. Personally, I have mine at the default settings, minus 6 decibels threshold and 60 milliseconds release time. Then do the exact same thing for your other sounds, but set the threshold to a lower number than the one you use for your microphone. Boom, your voice will now always be louder than everything else. The very last thing we're going to check is our internet connection itself, just to make sure we're not going to spontaneously go offline in the middle of a stream. If you stream to Twitch using OBS, you can go to inspector.twitch.tv, log in, and then in OBS click Settings, Stream, and Enable Bandwidth Test Mode. Hit OK and then press Start Streaming. OBS will warn you that you're about to test your bandwidth instead of actually going live, so press yes and then you can go back over to inspector.twitch.tv and look for any interruptions in connectivity. If you're on Streamlabs OBS, unfortunately the process is a little bit more involved. You have to go over to your Twitch account and click into your Creator dashboard. From there, expand your settings, click Stream, and then copy your primary stream key. You then open up Streamlabs, go to Settings, then Stream, and click Stream to Custom Ingest. Make sure Twitch is selected as your streaming service, and then paste in your stream key. You then want to click the eye icon to show your stream key, and then add $bandwidth test equals true. Now when you hit go live, you'll be streaming to the test servers instead, and you can monitor it through inspector.twitch.tv. Just make sure you remove bandwidth test true before going live for the first time. If you're streaming to YouTube, as of right now, they actually don't have a service like this. However, you can use something like fast.com or speedtest.net to get an idea of what your upload rate would be. Alternatively, remember in step 2 when I said about getting social handles. There's nothing stopping you from creating a Twitch account and using Twitch test servers to see how your machine is going to fare during a stream. Even if you never use Twitch again, it's a great way of testing out how things are going to work. Tip number 9 is to network. And let me say up front, networking isn't just posting a go live link anywhere and everywhere. And it's definitely not going into someone's channel and saying, oh, I'm just popping in to say hi quickly before I go live. It's not subtle, it's not clever, and actually it's going to sour people's opinions of you and your stream. What I'm talking about is building genuine friendships with people. So when you start streaming, you've already got people rooting for you, and actually, they're likely to turn up without you even asking. There are loads of ways to network effectively, but the easiest is just to be active in multiple communities. Be friendly, be approachable, say good morning in someone's Discord, or say, hey, how's your weekend in someone's stream? And don't just engage the streamer. You want to make friendships in people's chats and communities as well. You can use your own social media profiles as well to great advantage. Maybe post a silly TikTok or a funny Instagram story, or even just a Facebook post saying, look, I'm thinking about trying out streaming and I would love it if you join me. There's nothing wrong with inviting friends and family, and actually, it can be really comforting knowing there are people in chat who've known you for years and years and are rooting for you. Discovery as a small streamer is so hard, especially in oversaturated categories like Fortnite or Minecraft. It's a bit of a chicken egg situation, but the more concurrent viewers you have, the more your stream gets recommended to other people. Having people watching you who know you personally can actually make a huge difference in discoverability for people who are just browsing for streams. By networking effectively, you're giving yourself a leg up compared to other small streamers. So last but by no means least is tip number 10, establish a positive mindset. And be realistic too. Let's face it, Rome wasn't built in a day, and huge streamers like Ninja or Shroud, they didn't become household names overnight. Streaming takes time, patience, dedication, but the fact you're watching this, it shows that you're more serious than about 90% of new streamers out there. Not every stream is going to feel like a success, especially at first. Those early streams can feel kind of lonely sometimes, but keep persisting, keep being entertaining, keep being engaging. One way I try to do this is by turning off the view counter. A lot of small streamers, when they first start, they obsess over their views, and it's completely natural. But I know that for myself, if I see a low number in that view counter, I'm going to have a low mood. And if I'm not having a fun time, people watching aren't going to have a fun time. By turning off that view counter, it gives me free rein just to be goofy, be silly, and be myself. If there's one thing to take away from this video, it's to stream as if you've got a huge audience at all times. Eventually those numbers will come. It's also a great idea to watch back recordings of your streams and pick out 5 things that you liked about it. Doesn't have to be huge victories, just little wins. Things as simple as, I cracked a funny joke there, or my lighting was really good, or even just, in that stream there were no technical issues. Focusing on the wins, no matter how big or small, it can make a huge difference in shifting that mental attitude from negative to positive. And there you have it. Follow these 10 tips and you'll be a successful streamer in no time, be it on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, or even some magical platform that doesn't even exist yet. Whatever the platform though, make sure you read the terms of service and crucially, understand them. Even experienced streamers get this wrong, and there's so much misinformation out there, it makes sense just to read the docs so you know what you're signing up to, you don't end up in hot water. We'll call that a bonus tip. Let me know in the comments below what you think of these tips, and if you're a more experienced streamer, feel free to leave your own tips in the comments. Who knows, I may even do a follow-up video in the future. Be sure to leave a like if you found anything in this video helpful, and if you want to watch another video, you can click right here. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, because this is just the beginning. I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of YouTube videos in the near future, focusing on tips for small streamers, and you won't want to miss out. I've been Danny, and I'll catch you on the next one.